It's time to kick off our February edition of the Membership Luncheon, and I'd certainly like to welcome you all. This is going to be an outstanding day, and I can't thank you enough for showing up today. This is terrific, and I know you're all here because this is my last official luncheon, correct? As your chairman. No, that's probably not true, but thanks anyway. My name is Tim Cox, and I have had the honor of being your chairman these last 12 months. And as I said, this is my last official luncheon, but don't worry, I'll be back. I would like to make a couple of announcements. First of all, again, welcome. We've got a tremendous program today, and I would also like to say the LIBA mission statement, which is to provide leadership and educational opportunities to the business community, to educate the public concerning the vital role of business in creation of meaningful jobs and in meeting the payrolls that allow our citizens to enjoy quality of life, to communicate the concerns of the business community to elected and appointed officials at all levels of government, and to support political candidates who understand and promote the free enterprise system. I'd also like to remind you that this is a phone-free zone, so if you would take your cell phones, kindly put them on vibrate or turn them off, it would be appreciated. At this time, I'd like to recognize the members of our Torch Club, and these are the individuals who have signed up new members to LIBA in this past month. That is Sherry Neiman has 2 members, Barb Tyler, 1 member, Joe Hampton, 1 member, Jim Christo, 1 member, and Casey Matouche, 1 member. Let's give these people a big round of applause. And with that, I will turn it over to our President and CEO, Kobe Mack. Take it away, Bud.
Well, good afternoon. Nice to see all of you here this afternoon. And this is Tim's final LIBA luncheon. And with that, I want to say just a quick word. You know, in life you run into people that you think, boy, you know, I'd like to kind of hitch my wagon to that person's wagon and go through life with them because you admire them so much, you think so much of them, and you have a deep respect for them. And Tim is one of those people, and let's give him a round of applause for a year of service. We are going to be voting on some new board members today. At the February membership meeting of the LIBA Lunch, the members in attendance elect new members to serve on the LIBA Board of Directors. The Advisory Committee, in its role as the nominating committee and in accordance with the LIBA bylaws, is placing the following LIBA members into nomination for a 3-year term on the board to expire at the end of February 2015. Those nominees are, and have been published in our newsletter the last 2 months, as required by the bylaws. The nominees are Jim Christo of Christo Design Build, Steve Hughes of Steve's Mobile Auto Glass, Scott Neal of Right at Home, Kim Wolf, Midwest Medical and Transport Company, and Doug Wyatt of Lincoln Orthopedic Center. Are there any other nominations from the floor today? Are there any other nominations from the floor? Seeing none, would there be a motion to move forward with the slate as presented by the LIBA Advisory Board? I've got a motion. Is there a second? I have a second as well. Motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. Please welcome Jim, Steve, Scott, Kim, and Doug Wyatt to the LIBA board when you see them. Let's see. Every month we have a drawing for those that have done business with a LIBA member. And we are very pleased to have the folks with Gallup. Gallup is not only here today, but are sponsoring our lunch. And so we're giving away a set of books from Gallup. And the winner is Bob Dunn. Bob, congratulations. Also, when you came in, you received one of these red tickets. Tim, maybe you should just stay down there, if you don't mind, because we have a few sets of books we're giving away from Gallup. This one is going to 674. Do you have 674?
Oh, no.
While he's doing that, we have 678. Boy, I better shake those up a little more. 678. Roma. There you go. Thank you, Scott. Let's give one to 670. 670. Here you go.
Right over there.
I got them flying all around now. 633. Who has 633? Phil Young. Gallup will improve that mind, I can tell you right there. Okay, his sister thought that was funny. Anyway, thank you, Shala, for laughing at that. We also want to remind you, Small Business Day at the Capitol is coming up tomorrow. In the center of the table, I had placed some flyers. The NFIB, the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, LIBA, and several other organizations have gone together to present Small Business Day at the Capitol. Now, there's only two in the middle of the table. If you want one and you don't get one, we have some right over there at the Torch Club board, and we also have some at the check-in table. It's $15 tomorrow at the state capitol. The governor will be addressing the group, and also we'll have quite a few state senators that make their way through with the group as well. So that's happening tomorrow, Small Business Day at the Capitol. Need to let you know about our next BizNet. The BizCo BizNet is going to be Thursday, March 15th. We hope you'll put that on your calendar. Thursday, March 15th at the Grand Manse. It is also being co-hosted by Three Eagles Communications. It goes from 5 until 6:30 p.m. We'll have complimentary food, complimentary hors d'oeuvres for you as well, so put that on your calendar too. Also in front of you, you find today a call to action that's in the middle of the table there somewhere. We are opposing a bill that is known as LB 1098. That doesn't mean much unless you know what it would do. And essentially what it would do is kill the South Beltway for the city of Lincoln, because it reverses last year's road funding bill from Senator Deb Fisher to provide road funding all across the state of Nebraska. And so we have the committee members' emails on there. We hope that you'll take one of these, take it back to your office, and email those committee members and ask them to kill this bill, because we cannot afford to have more people dying on Highway 2 here in the capital city. Mike and I went over and we testified last week and told our state senators that just in the stretch from East Lincoln to West Lincoln on Highway 2, in the last 11 years, 17 people have died on that stretch of highway. And so we have got to kill this bill. We need the road funding. Also, at this time, I would like to introduce our luncheon host today, Scott Daniel with the Gallup organization. Let's make him feel welcome. Scott?
I'll be sure to stick to my 4 minutes, Kobe. Four. In 1952, as a graduate student, Don Clifton looked around psychology's hyper-focus on deficits and illness and wondered, what would happen if we actually studied what is right about people? This question, which is still provocative more than half a century later, inspired his graduate dissertation and became his life work. Don was just passionate about people reaching their unique potential, and he thought it was a shame whenever they fall short. One of the rumors that floats around about Don is that sometimes he'd be driving by a cemetery, and he said, I wonder how many of those people in that cemetery actually died without ever knowing their unique talents, their strengths and talents. He was just passionate about a strengths revolution. In 2002, the American Psychological Association honored him with a presidential commendation as the father of strengths-based psychology. Gallup at Heart today is a performance management consulting company. We develop practical applications on many strengths-related topics, including strengths development, employee selection, employee engagement, customer engagement, management, and leadership. Why am I here today? Well, as many of you know, we moved our operations to Omaha 10 years ago. What people don't realize is that we still have about 450 employees in Lincoln, and about 50% of those are full-time employees. A majority of them work in our call centers, where we're tracking what the world's thinking on lots of important issues, including Senate approval, where we help people, or hospitals, banks, and other organizations engage their customers and patients. We relocated our downtown location to Fallbrook about 3 years ago, so we now have 2 locations in Lincoln. The other relocation just happened last month, which is part of why I'm here today. I wanted to be able to invite all of you on April 20th at 3 p.m., and yes, you can use your phones to plug in the information, the calendar date, even though we're not supposed to, I realize. It's easier to give permission than to ask permission, and then it's easier to apologize than ask permission first, but go ahead and plug that information in. 3 p.m. April 20th, we'd love to have as many people from LIBA come out. It's going to be a big celebration. It's the second largest relocation in Gallup's history, and we built a state-of-the-art, it's the best call center we've ever built, and it's really sweet, and I'm obviously privileged and blessed to be able to work out of there. So 3 p.m. April 20th. And the last thing I'd like to do is just turn your attention to the flyers that I put on your table. And I realize most of the people in here may not be looking for that second part-time job, but many of you do know people that are looking. And with where the economy is, we have a whole host of full-time people as well that are making very good money in that full-time position. We're so often known for our students working in our call centers. But really, that's only about 40 to 45% of our population. A lot of the folks are either retired and they're looking for something else to do, or they're people working the job full-time and they're doing some debt buster for 6 months to a year. They're working that second job 20 hours a week. So please pass those flyers on if you know somebody that's looking. Application instructions, specifics of the job are there. And I'll be around afterwards if anyone has questions about that or anything else about Gallup. But we appreciate being able to be a part of LIBA and everything that is going on here as well. So thanks.
Thank you. The Lieutenant Governor was going to join us today to talk about his infrastructure conference. Has anyone seen the Lieutenant Governor? Has he made it through yet? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Our big event, LIBA's big convention, is coming up March 8th. Tickets are going fast. Last 2 years we have sold out. I anticipate that within the next 7 to 10 days we'll sell out again. And so if you're still looking for a convention ticket, please get that taken care of, and Christina can help you in the back of the room. The Free Enterprise Celebration, we have had donations that are pouring in. Last year we raised over $100,000 thanks to your generosity. I want to highlight just a few quick things. John Henry's Plumbing has donated a high efficiency, it's called a Voltex water heater. This is including the installation, a $3,000 value. So we have that. We have dining packages from Carmela's, the Country Club, Misty's, Billy's, Olive Garden, JTK, bookkeeping for a year. We've got advertising for almost everybody's needs, including from the Journal-Star, Time Warner Cable, Fox, Three Eagles, from the Broadcast House, from KLKN, exclusive Husker items. We've got a small display of items over there as well. We just got the Chicago Cubs helmet from this year's team that has been autographed. We've got trips to Las Vegas and the Venetian and Jamaica, computers. We've got an iPad. Living Social just called yesterday, and they said, Cobe, is it too late to get in a package? And I said, no, it's not. What would you like to donate? He says, well, I've got $2,000 worth of gift certificates from Living Social. I said, we'd love to have it. 23 free gift certificates from Fazoli's, and there's Gary Michaels Clothiers and Sam and Louie's Pizza and the Nebraska Club, and the list goes on, and the gift certificates from Living Social. And this is a new item for us this year too, kind of cool. The Top Gun Hunt Club has donated both a pheasant hunt for 2 and a snow goose or waterfowl hunt for 2. So if you have a hunter that is in your life, or if you happen to be one, there's a couple of great things for you to bid on as well. We'll be sending out a complete list of those items. Lieutenant Governor Rick Sheehy is in the room. Come on up, Governor, Lieutenant Governor.
Telling me to keep it to 3 minutes or less? Really? Geez, okay. Oh, 2 minutes or less. So, all right. Well, good afternoon to all of you, and it's great to be here today and really talking about a conference that is going to be held on March 27th and 28th at the La Vista Embassy Suites in La Vista. For about the last 7 years, we have held this conference, which is called the Nebraska Infrastructure Protection Conference. And what we do is we bring public and private sector individuals together to talk about disaster preparedness, disaster response. 85% of our critical infrastructure in the state of Nebraska is held by the private sector. And so it's so important that we as public officials and you as business individuals have discussions and conversations in a non-crisis situation so that when we have an incident, you and I have had that face-to-face time, and you've worked with either the fire department, the police department, or some of our state agencies. And so we have been this is our 7th year or our 8th year, and so I brought some information about the conference. So some of the topics that actually we'll be having, and this is a joint conference with Deborah Gill from the U.S. Attorney's Office and myself, but we will be talking about Mumbai attacks. We will also have an intelligence briefing to a level that we can give to you that talks really about what are the threats and the risks to the state of Nebraska. We'll have cybersecurity, which is now a big issue. We're going to talk about the energy sector, gang updates, active shooter and armed intruders. So those are all types of information that you as individuals in business really should be aware of and should be thinking about as we continue to move forward. We know that the terrorist attacks are not going to be as elaborate as they were on September 11th. It's not if we're going to have something here in the United States or the state of Nebraska, but it's when. And so we as individuals still need to make sure that we stay vigilant on this issue, and the best way for us to do that, to be prepared, is for us to work together. So I have a number of brochures here, or you can go to www.nipc.us and register online. I think I see a few faces of individuals here that are involved with our NIPC, which is, as I said, Nebraska Infrastructure Protection Council. I see a few hands. We meet 3 times out of the year. If you want to raise your hand if you attend those meetings. I see a few people. They don't. I guess they don't want to raise their hands. So. But I have some brochures here, and then also just some other information that says recognizing interdependency and building partnerships, what we do throughout the year. So Colby, thank you. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if you want to, we can help hand those out or have them up front, whatever you'd like. So, Lieutenant Governor Rick Sheehy, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, and now on to our political forum today. We've drawn straws to see who will go first today. And first will be State Treasurer Don Stenberg, followed by State Senator Deb Fisher, then Attorney General John Bruning, and finally Pat Flynn. Spencer Zimmerman was invited. However, he called last night and said he would not be able to attend. At this point, I would like to invite any members of the media that need to come up and turn gear on. Come on up and turn your gear. Chris Lofgren, ladies and gentlemen, will be, stand up, Chris. He is our official timekeeper. He will let the candidates know when they have 2 minutes, 1 minute, and 30 seconds left. We're giving each candidate 8 minutes. However, we have asked the candidates to answer 2 questions. I feel like Richard Nixon. Answer 2 questions at the beginning of their speech. You may remember that Senator Amanda McGill waited till the end in a previous forum to answer our questions and conveniently ran out of time. So we've asked them to answer. Come on, I love Amanda. We disagree on a couple things, but that's okay. The 2 questions we've asked each candidate to answer. Number 1, today, this room is full of small and independent business owners. What can the federal government do to help businesses succeed? And then number 2, if the health care bill is repealed or found unconstitutional by the courts, what solutions do you have to fix the health care problems in our country? And as I stated, we start with Don Stenberg. Please give a round of applause for our State Treasurer, Don Stenberg.
Thank you very much for inviting me to be with you today. 12 years ago, I was presented the Business Champion Award by the Lincoln Independent Business Association, and it still means a lot to me because I worked hard for small businesses. I served as your Attorney General, and I will as your United States Senator. The question, what can the federal government do to help small business? The short answer first, get out of the way. Get out of the way. Take those tens of thousands of pages of regulations you write each year and stop writing. Quit threatening to raise the taxes on every successful individual in this country. That's not how you build our economy. Let's encourage success, not penalize it. Well, to be more specific, and regulations are what I hear about over and over again. And there's so many examples of excessive federal government regulation. Just a week or so ago, we had some federal food policeman out there in North Carolina checking a 4-year-old's lunch to see if her mother had given her a proper lunch in the view of the federal government. It's absolutely outrageous. When I grew up in Tecama, Nebraska, I detasseled corn. Now the Labor Department has a proposed rule that young people can't detassel corn. I talked to the Omaha home builders a couple of months ago. There's a new OSHA regulation that they say will raise the cost of new homes built in Nebraska by about 30%. And of course, they've got new regulations on power plants that are going to cost us all tremendous amounts of money and increases in our electric bills over time. I have 2 proposals to address that situation. Number 1, as your next United States Senator, I will offer legislation that will repeal each and every major regulation passed by the Obama administration and tell the bureaucrats to go back and start over. And number 2, I will support legislation that will require before any new major rule or regulation can go into effect in the future, that it be submitted to and voted on and approved by the Congress of the United States. It's time to take the lawmaking power out of the hands of appointed, irresponsible, and irresponsive bureaucrats and put it back in the hands of our elected representatives, and we'll have a lot less regulations if we do that. We need to cut wasteful federal spending. Now, I have a record of being a fiscal conservative in the offices that I've served in. As your state treasurer, shortly after taking office, I asked the state legislature to cut my budget by 13% for the current fiscal year and for next fiscal year. They were very happy to oblige that request, and that will save you $1.4 million over the next 2 years. As your Attorney General, I operated that office on the 3rd smallest budget in the United States. And a number of years ago, when I was Director of the State Department of Administrative Services, we saved Nebraska taxpayers about $1 million by reducing the size of the state car fleet. I think they have too many again, by the way, and by renegotiating some contracts. The fact is that politicians of both political parties have failed to balance the federal budget. And that's why I strongly support a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution of the United States, just like we have here in the state of Nebraska. And that amendment should require a supermajority to increase taxes so that we get a balanced budget through spending reductions, not more tax increases. Now, I'm often asked, well, where would you cut? And what I say is I would look first to programs and agencies that have failed. One of those, in my opinion, is the Federal Department of Education. Created in the late 1970s under President Carter, its objective was to improve K-12 education throughout the United States. Test scores clearly show that it has failed in that mission. I would eliminate the Federal Department of Education. There's no need to pay all those federal bureaucrats. What they do is write regulations, and then they enforce those regulations, which makes it harder for our students, or for our teachers, and for our principals and our schools to get their job done. We can save the federal taxpayers money and put the power back in the hands of our local school districts, and we'll get better education, not by being dictated to by federal bureaucrats in the city of Washington, D.C. I would also eliminate the Federal Department of Energy for the same reason. It was created to reduce our dependence on foreign oil. It has demonstrably failed to do that. I would preserve the nuclear regulatory functions of that agency, but we're not going to develop our domestic energy resources by paying federal bureaucrats to sit around in a building in Washington, D.C. We need to get the federal government out of the way, open our government lands offshore, Alaska, and throughout the country to oil and gas exploration. That's how you reduce the dependence on foreign oil and develop our domestic energy resources. Get the federal government out of the way and let the private sector do the job. Also, to help small business, one thing we can do is repeal the estate tax. It's just not fair when you're trying to pass a business from one generation to the next to have to pay the federal government, basically buy that business back from the federal government in the form of federal estate tax. And I support complete abolishment of the federal estate tax. It's just not a fair tax, and it really disrupts family businesses as you go from generation to generation. We need to make the Bush tax cuts permanent. If we don't do that, come next year, all of your taxes are going to go up. Your capital gains taxes are going to go up. Your taxes on dividends are going to go up. Your taxes are going to go up on about every way that you can imagine. I support permanently having a 100% expensing option on the purchase of new equipment and machinery. I think that will help encourage economic development and investment in new plant and equipment in the United States. I believe we need to cut the corporate tax rate to 15 or 20% to further encourage economic development in our country. And we need to repeal Obamacare. Obamacare is an economic disaster. It's a health care disaster. It eventually will lead to complete federal takeover of our health care system and to the rationing of medical care. Now, what do we do to replace it? I believe we should rely on fair market, free market principles. And that would include allowing health insurance companies to compete across state lines. It would mean that we would emphasize and encourage health savings accounts and high deductible policies that will encourage consumers to make wise decisions in their medical care choices. And I believe we need tort reform. We need to take lawyers out of this. They run up the cost of practicing medicine, which leads to higher costs for consumers. And I support term limits. The fact is, we've seen from across the country politicians in Washington who have gone on and on and on in office and have lost touch with the American people. So I'm a strong supporter of term limits, and I voluntarily limited my service to 12 years as your Attorney General. Let me finish by saying this. Here's what I think we need our next United States Senator to be. He needs to be a senator we can trust. He needs to be a true conservative, not a pretend conservative. He needs to be a senator strongly committed to fundamental values who does not flip-flop on the issues. We need a full-time United States Senator who is committed to public service, not to personal financial gain while serving in office. If you elect me as your next United States Senator, that's the kind of senator that I'll be for you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Please welcome to the podium State Senator Deb Fischer.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Everybody in this room knows that our country's in a crisis. We're in a financial crisis, and we're also in a crisis of leadership. And as I travel the state, I hear from Nebraskans their frustrations and their concerns with the direction our country's headed. And I agree with them. and they're tired of sound bites, and they're tired of political platitudes from candidates. So I'm really thankful that we have the opportunity today to have a somewhat long discussion on a couple questions that are very important to the direction our country's headed. When I listen to Nebraskans, what I hear is they want to cut spending and they want to address the debt. We have over $15 trillion in debt. We all know that's not sustainable. So your questions get to the heart of that matter. Your questions address the concerns that Nebraskans have. I'm a small business owner. I'm a rancher. So I'm very well aware that small business is the driver for our economy. A couple months ago, I put out a policy plan that addresses how we can help small businesses create jobs, how we can help small businesses turn this economy around. First of all, stop the tax increases and reform the tax code. We need to lower the corporate tax rate. It's at 35% right now. That's the highest among our trading partners. I think we need to lower that to about 24%. We need to eliminate the alternative minimum tax. We need to close the loopholes that allow companies like General Electric to benefit by moving their money out of this country instead of leaving it here and growing this economy. Next, we need to reduce regulations. I'm a rancher. I deal with a lot of regulations, just like you do in your businesses. We need to have an independent review to analyze what kind of economic impact these rules and regulations are going to have on businesses. And with regards to the EPA, I think we need to have congressional approval if that economic impact is over a significant dollar amount. We need to reduce energy costs. You in business know that. Here in Nebraska, we're somewhat fortunate because we do have public power, and we're able to have somewhat low electric rates. That's because we have coal-fired electric plants. That's because we have nuclear energy. But when you have a federal government that wants to impose what I think are unrealistic regulations on those plants with regards to emissions, that's going to drive up your costs, and that's going to drive up then your product's cost for consumers. We need to lower energy costs. We need to lower health care costs. Everybody up here is going to tell you we have to repeal Obamacare. We need to have tort reform. We need to allow for insurance companies to sell their insurance across state lines. We need to allow for the easier formation of healthcare associations, and all that is true. We need to do that. But you know, we better start thinking outside the box. We better start thinking about what we really want from health care. We have an administration and a Congress that addressed health care access. I think we need to address finance, delivery, and outcomes. Finance. What can we afford? What are the costs of health care? And we all know that the question should be, how can we drive those costs down? With delivery, we need safe, affordable, accessible health care. And when you look at outcomes, that's when I think we really need to look outside the box. Right now, we have a fee for service. You know, maybe we should begin to consider and have a conversation on a value-based system for outcomes. Maybe that would help with affordability. I've had the opportunity to meet with hospital administrators and medical providers. I was at the Med Center yesterday. I've also talked to insurers and, most importantly, consumers. Those are the people who need to be involved in a health care discussion. We didn't have any debate on health care. a couple years ago when we had the federal government decide what we needed. And that's what we need to have, is a discussion, a debate, a conversation on what are truly common sense ideas that I've heard all across this state. You know, we can't count on these same politicians to give us anything different. That's why we're in the mess we're in. So I would propose to you, we need to send someone to Washington, D.C. who's not your typical career politician. I would propose that would be me. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a rancher and a small business owner, and I'm a citizen legislator. When I was elected 8 years ago, I wanted to serve the people of my district and the people of this state by cutting costs, by finding efficiencies. So I rolled up my sleeves and I got to work. I helped to pass the largest tax relief package in the history of this state. I introduced and passed an eminent domain bill that protects private property rights against the abuses of government. I introduced and passed an occupation tax bill that caps occupation taxes on telecommunications services. And with the support of this group, I have my priority this year, which is an occupation tax bill, which requires a vote of the people, which requires a specific purpose to be listed, and which has a sunset date if an occupation tax is going to be implemented. And I thank you for your support for my roads funding bill, because that's what we need in government. You set priorities, you determine what are the core responsibilities of a limited government, and that's what you fund with existing revenue, not with tax increases. You know, we can make a change. This is a very, very important election. Nebraskans are demanding change. Americans are demanding change, and we can do it. The stakes are high. I ask for your support. I've worked hard and I've been very effective, I've been told, here in this state in dealing with legislative issues. And that's what the United States Senate is. It's a legislature. And I promise you I would work hard and I'll roll up my sleeves and fight for you in Washington like I have here in Nebraska. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Attorney General John Bruning.
Well, this is fun to be with LIBA again. Kobe made me promise not to be condescending in my speech. And Phil, that means talk down to. So I just want to make sure you... This is fun for me. Actually, kind of a walk down memory lane. I worked for Gallup when I was 16 years old, among other jobs as a kid. I worked at Burger King, and I worked selling pop at the football games, and I detasseled corn, and I did all the same crappy jobs that most of you have done along the way. And what it makes me realize is, I mean, what can we do for small business? I think Don Stenberg's exactly right. Get the government out of the way. We have to get the government out of the way. $15 trillion right now in debt, $1 trillion in deficit just this year, $1.5 trillion last year. It's an unsustainable path. You look at Europe, you look at Greece, where people are rioting in the streets, and they're trying to figure out, how do we right the ship? What is it we do to right the ship? And the guy up in Germany, he's saying, I get to retire at age 67, and I get 40% of what I made. But the guy in Greece, he gets to retire at 57, and he gets 70% of what he made. You understand why Greece is in flames. That's the direction we're heading. The government can't do everything for everyone. You in this room are part of the barely 50% of this country that pays taxes. That's problematic when you're floating the boat for everybody else. What does the government do? What is it we can do for small business owners? We can get out of your way. But Washington doesn't understand it. Not only do they spend and spend and spend, Obamacare, they try to take over 1/6 of the American economy. So we have to figure out how to cut spending in Washington. It's critical. Where do you cut? Well, I think Don's right. You got to cut Department of Education. Can you get rid of the whole thing? I don't know, but you can get rid of a lot of it. EPA, right? You can get rid of EPA. Then there's a third one, You were nervous for me, weren't you, Mary Jo? You thought he actually forgot the third one. I did not. It's energy, and I agree that we need to reduce the size and scope of the energy department. There are departments all across the spectrum that need to be cut. You start with EPA. I've sued, as your Attorney General, I've sued EPA more than 20 times. Why? Because they continue to over-regulate. In Grand Island right now, they're trying to figure out how to deal with the latest rules, the cross-state air pollution rules, that caused their plant in Grand Island to have to spend about $30 million. So you think to yourself, what could Grand Island do with $30 million other than put more pollution control on a smokestack that's already had year after year after year of bureaucrats adding pollution control? The air is clean. It's clean enough. We could hire 1,000 people to lay on their stomachs and scrub around the corners of the room and try to figure out if there's a piece of dust down there somewhere, and that would arguably make the room cleaner, but it's not particularly cost effective for the Holiday Inn. So why is it that here in America we continue to have bureaucrats that just make rule after rule after rule that make it harder for you to succeed as business people? I talked to Larry Hudkins here in Lancaster County. He's a county commissioner. He told me they're trying to pave a mile of road, and they had to hire a bird inspector. And the bird inspector, we didn't have a federally certified one here in Nebraska, so we had to fly one in from Colorado. $2,500 is what this person cost. And she walked down the road and she did not see a bird, but she said she heard one. I mean, Larry just told me this a week ago. We're not making this stuff up. This is where we're at with American regulation. You know the stories. I talked about the road project up at Sargent, where they found the little burying beetle, and the thing was in the ground, and they had to stop the roads project. And they've got $1 million of equipment sitting on the side of the road. And they stopped this roads project. And they have to hire a federal biologist, and he goes out there and he traps each of these little beetles in a bucket, and they put a rat carcass in there, and the beetles fall in, and then they gingerly take them 2 miles down the road and dump them out, and they do this day after day. Your tax dollars do this day after day. That's what you're paying for. And what happened when the farmer that lived near there started to videotape this? He realized that the raccoons weren't stupid, and they were going to go ahead and eat the beetles out of the bottom of the bucket, right? Now, I'm not going to go any further with the story. But you understand, this is what your tax dollars are paying for. This is why I continue to sue EPA. You look at the Consumer Finance Protection Authority. I talked to Elizabeth Warren. I said, how many people are you going to hire? She said, I think I can do it with 1,000 new people. 1,000 new people. And I guarantee you, in the federal system, they're 100,000 apiece all in. What they've got is not just their salaries, but the best benefit package anywhere. And it's wrong. It's not the benefit package that you're able to offer to your employees. It's absolutely wrong. What we did here in Nebraska, what we continue to do, we have a consumer operation that's run by interns. In fact, I met one today, Ty Steinkühler. You remember Ty? He played football for us here at Nebraska. Great young guy. Ty was an intern, and we never met when he was an intern over there. But if you call because your mom or dad gets scammed and you say, hey, mom or dad got a lottery scam or whatever it is, we have unpaid interns doing it. We've tripled the size of our consumer operation at the Attorney General's office with no extra cost. Tripled the number of cases we're handling because we use college kids that get college credit. But at the federal level, they don't think that way, do they? They think, well, we'll just hire 1,000 new bureaucrats. And that's what's wrong with Washington. That's why I'm leading the charge against Obamacare, leading that lawsuit. We'll be in the Supreme Court next month, March 26th through the 28th. We started out at 13 states. I was the president of the National AGs Association when we filed the lawsuit. They mocked us. They said, you'll never win. We won at the district court. We won at the appellate court. We're going to win at the Supreme Court. We have to. We don't need the federal government involved in it. In answer to the second question, what do we do about health care? Get the government out of the way. Make it market-based so you can make choices. Right now, the federal government incents employer-sponsored health insurance. That's the incentive. Maybe we ought to make it a tax credit for everybody instead of an employer deduction. Maybe it should be a tax credit. Maybe you should know what something costs. You go to the hospital and try to ask them what the next procedure you're going to get costs. They don't even know because it depends. What plan are you on? Are you on a plan? How do we fix healthcare? We make it market-based. So there's some competition going on, the same as there is anywhere else. If I want a bank, I can decide whether I want to go with Carl or another bank. There's lots of good banks, and you can decide, and they compete, and you know what things cost. You know what he'll pay for a savings account or a CD or what a loan costs. But in healthcare, we don't know, and we have to know. How do we fix healthcare? I think we have to make it more market-based. I appreciate LIBA having us here today. I think it's important that we have these kinds of debates. Colby, I've told you this before, but this is an amazing thing. I mean, LIBA was not didn't just fall out of the sky. It was created by the hard work of a lot of people and you in this room who've decided that it's important that we get together and talk about issues that are important to our economy, our state. Small business is what drives this economy. It's not IBM and the big businesses. This economy is driven by small business. That's where the rubber meets the road. What the federal government has to do is get out of your way. If you send me to the Senate, you know I'm not going to be a shrinking violet. You know I'm going to be there to fight for you. You know I'm not scared. I'm not a guy that goes along to get along. I think you've seen me as Attorney General long enough to know that. I need your vote, and I appreciate you having me here today. Thank you very much.
And then our final candidate this afternoon is Pat Flynn. Make him feel welcome.
Thank you for having me here. I'm from Schuyler and the only businessman in this race. I grew up on a farm, worked in hog confinements, and managed them for 8 years while I was in high school and college. At age 23, I started my own insurance and investment business by knocking on doors day in and day out for 11 years. So the thing is during this time, I've seen an incredible assault on my business and everybody else's business in America by these regulatory firms, the state, and the federal government. Business for me used to be fun. And now, I was the big problem of why I could not succeed. That makes sense, that I would be the number one obstacle. That's not true today. Government is the number one obstacle in my business. I have to address all these regulations, and it's not fun. I went across the street to the neighbor's business the other day, and he was in terror of what was going on with his business. It's a full-blown assault by the government. And what I'm saying is this is about leadership. And the fact of it is, we've tried all the career politicians in the world, and they do not work. We need people with business skills that know how to lead, and that's why I want to go to Washington, is to take it to the throat of Washington. It's either their throat or ours, and we got to get serious about this. So, what I did is this. Last May, I sold my business, burned the boat, and got in this race with both feet. I'm a desperado, because I will not have a business in 3 years if this keeps going the way it is. I do very well in business. In fact, in an investment business, I thrive in this market because they are running from people and other investment advisors are quitting. And so this is my time. But the fact of it is, who cares about Pat Flynn? The fact of it is people that want to get in the business aren't going to be in it either. Now, how do we help small businesses succeed in America? Well, I have to just go with what I heard. You get the government out of the way in every shape and form, period. Here's how I would help small businesses. Number one, we do not raise the debt ceiling anymore, and we cut government spending. Now, the good part about this is 67% of America is in favor of this solution. That means both Democrats and Republicans are in favor of this mode. What I would do as your United States Senator is this. I would lead the cause. I would go to every House and Senate member and say this. You know what we're going to do? We're going to take this message to the American people because this is what they want. And you might want to get it on this board as the House and Senate member, because if you don't, you're going to be reelected in 2 years. Now, they'll start listening when it comes time to get reelected, and we will take it to the people in every medium of communication there is today. Also, I would introduce a Full Faith and Credit Act, which would take the discretion away from this administration to default on U.S. Treasuries. We have to make him accountable and put him up against the wall. Number two, we need to cut government spending by 30% or the budget deficit. The debt's going to crush us. It can crush a household, it can crush a business, it can crush a state, and it can crush a nation. You might say, oh, that can't be done. Well, actually, it can be done. In 2000, if we go back to the 2007 budget, we're there. Nobody goes hungry. It's quite simple how we do this. The next thing we go after is these federal agencies. Federal agencies have usurped the power of our elected officials, taken away our liberties, and have helped create a culture of dependence and destruction. The first 5 agencies I'm after are this: a 70% reduction in the EPA, eliminate the Department of Energy, HUD, eliminate it, Department of Education, eliminate it, Department of Labor, 70% reduction. Now, the fact of it is there isn't a business person in America that wouldn't be behind this proposal. So we can take that and get people to do it. That's the fact of it. It takes incredible leadership, but we can get it done. My third solution is health care. And that answers the question how you would fix health care. Now, I've been in the healthcare insurance industry for the past 29 years, and I've seen the healthcare problems, and it's quite easy to see. If you're an insurance company, you have no more power to design your insurance product. You got state and federal agencies telling you how to design your product. Number 2 is this. We have to address the pharmaceutical companies and the FDA for making these laws that say a doctor has to practice within a little box. His scope of practice is so narrow anymore. We have to let the alternative forms of medicine and nutrition come into being. As a doctor, what I see as doctors is this. They say, Pat, we can only do this. I say, well, cut the scope. Get off our case and let a doctor be a doctor, whether it's medicine or healthcare or nutrition or what. The next thing, we need to encourage competition. Let the doctors and the insurance companies sink or swim on their own merit. Tax reform, we have to change the tax code so we have equal treatment, allowing 100% tax credit for medical expenses. Benefit mandate reform, there's 52 mandates per state right now telling us what we have to have in our health insurance product. All I want is blood and guts health insurance. I don't need all this extra stuff. Medicaid and Medicare reform, I'm for a premium support system where if people need help with their Medicare and their Medicaid, they can go shop the solution. Let them be responsible for their own coverage, but help them out. We need to repeal Dodd-Frank. We need to address illegal immigration. It's the big old elephant in the room which no one wants to bring up. How have we been doing for the last 22 years with our attorney generals holding up the law in this state? Not too well, I'd tell you that right now. You want to really unleash America's business? Go for the fair tax. That gets rid of the corporate tax, the income tax, the payroll tax, and the estate tax. It would unleash America like no other. None of this happens without phenomenal leadership and the grace of God. I'm proposing to you that America needs a constitutional revolution by electing representatives who can lead us back to the principles and values of our founding fathers. The Declaration of Independence says this about that. It says, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. I'm vying to be one of those new guards as your next United States Senator. Thank you. God bless America. I appreciate your support.
Folks, I want to remind you as you leave today, Lieutenant Governor Rick Sheehy has got a very important symposium. I hope you'll take a moment to stop and visit with him or get one of the flyers as you leave today. And of course, take a look at some of the things that we have coming up here on the auction. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. Thank you to all of our candidates for being part of our forum. Thank you to Gallup for being our luncheon host.